Alrighty, so in this video I'm going to be going through the installation process. We're going to start with any of the configuration variables, and we're going to move from there into well, actually running the installer, which isn't much after this. So taking this from the top, and again I'm doing this in my text editor just because it's a lot easier to look at than the MA one. So installation settings, starting with preset start. This is where it's going to try to store the first position preset, so this would actually be position 2.201. Just like with anything else I've made, it's not going to overwrite anything. It's going to look for the next available chunk of 8 open presets before it stores anything. Sorry. View slot, this is where it's going to store the view, or where it's going to look for. If there's anything in the way, it'll move on to the next space. Next space that's open. Macro start, where it's going to, where it's going to try to start storing macros. Layout slot, where it's going to try to store the layout. Sequence start, where it's going to be storing sequences that are generated. Again, I just leave all these at 1 and let it pick the first open space. But if you've got any specifics on where you want these to be stored, this is where you will set it. Page name, this will be the name of the action button page that is created by the plugin. Effect start, where it's going to try to start storing effects. The base name of the effects, an extension for the effect. So this is for the purposes of macros. So if you want to have macro lines that say, for example, I'm just going to type it out here to be able to show it. Let's say we said executor star effects at 0 fade 2. So if you wanted to write that as a macro line, that's what the purpose of this is, so that you can have all of these executors ending with a similar name that you might use elsewhere for other effects. Effect exact, this is just going to be where it's going to suggest storing the executor first. That's all. Background color, this is RGB values for the background of the generated layout. You might have noticed it had a bit of a dark blue color because no red, no green, small amount of blue. Patch start and remote fixture ID, these are for the installed DMX remotes, because those fast and slow buttons, the flash buttons, they are triggered by DMX remotes. So it's going to patch a couple of fixtures. It'll take up 4 address spaces total. And this is where it's going to start looking for where to patch them, and where it will start looking for fixture numbers to assign to them. Again, nothing will be overwritten. Below that, this is why we postponed doing this till towards the end. These are the default rates, groups, and phase values that it will install. So the way you receive the plugin will be the way that I had it set up for where I was doing my own show file, which means that, sorry, that line is no longer relevant. Groups and phase. So groups will be the group options you get. So by default I had 0, 2, 3, 4, and 5 included. If you want to add an option for, let's just say, 8, we'll just do this just to make the example. It will create an additional group that has a value of 8 for groups that it's creating. Below that are the options we have for phase. Now this one's a little bit different from the groups one in that you can give it a separate value and name. So for example, once I got up to 360, I started naming them 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, because it was the number of cycles that was happening at that phase number. You'll notice for 90 and 180, since I didn't want to give them any special name, it's just 2 single quotes back to back, which is not the same as a double quote, just so we're clear on that. So it's 2 single quotes back to back, and that just means nothing is going to go in there, and the plugin will know to just use the name, or use the value as the name. If there is something in between the single quotes, it will use that instead. So the name part is what it will name that macro. The value part is what it will actually be assigning the phase to during that. The rest of this is not really relevant, nothing you need to be worried about. That's it. So that's the installation settings. So since we added that in here, actually I'll just do the same thing on our installer plugin on this end. So installer, we'll scroll down here, and we will add, we don't need this line anymore, and we're going to add 8 to this. We'll save that, no errors. All right, so before we start installation, you know what? I'm going to cut this video off here. We're going to go through the actual installation process itself in the next video.